We are Gold Ivy.
Our mission is to empower you to own and unleash your truth.
Stories of resiliency are gold, and ivy grows in hard places.
Those hard places are what create space for light to shine through.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production. You all know we're always sharing our favorite items that improve our health and help us feel better. So wait until you hear about this. NanoFit water.
NanoFit water is alkaline water, which means it helps neutralize the acid in your body. It's triple filtered, which reduces unwanted chemicals and toxins. It's supercharged with nanotized oxygen, which hydrates the body at a cellular level. And it's all natural, meaning there are zero additives or artificial flavors.
My biggest reason for adding NanoFit into my routine is for the performance and recovery benefits. As a runner, a faster pace and quicker recovery is what I'm after, and this water is a game changer. I feel better before, during, and after both cardio and strength training with the added oxygen and hydration benefits.
And I'm here for the gut health and skin benefits. Alkaline water has colon cleansing properties, reduces the acid in my body, and the fact that NanoFit water is triple filtered, it's going to help with my gut health. And when my gut is on point, so is my skin.
I'm against the waste of standard plastic water bottles, but NanoFit water is in 100% eco-friendly aluminum bottles that are shipped to your door by Amazon, taking the shopping hassle out. No more water bottles taking up a ridiculous amount of space in your cart or having to carry the heavy weight into your car and home.
You're about to see NanoFit everywhere. They're in Starbucks, Kroger, hospitals, and making their way to stores near you. We're thrilled to share its health benefits with you today, so you can ship NanoFit water right to your door.
NanoFit's mission is to help you feel better, function better, and sleep better, which we all want. So head on over to nanofitwater.com to order your case. It'll ship through Amazon, and use code GOLDIVY for a discount.
Fit your lifestyle with NanoFit water.
Brooke, what do you think everyone wants more of?
Energy.
What do you think most people are hoping to come out of 2023 with?
Feel more confident, be an example for others, actually have the self-discipline to take care of themselves.
Yes, exactly. Because we hear the need for it and we want to help you get in the best shape of your life, we created Move with Gold Ivy, our virtual workout platform.
Our dream has been to create accessible, affordable, and effective workouts that you can do anytime, anywhere, designed to hold you accountable and get you the results you need.
You can pick any workout you want at any time, but if you do want a plan that alternates muscle groups and leaves your body feeling energized and strong, we have a weekly plan that you can follow to take the guesswork out.
It's easy to navigate and packed with all kinds of workouts that will help you strengthen, trim, pump up, tone, energize, de-stress, all of the things we want our body to feel. It's within Move.
Don't forget to mention the resources we offer. As a member of Move with Gold Ivy, you'll be a part of our exclusive Ivy League community, where we share our top wellness resources on things like meal planning, gut health hacks, time management, and more.
And because you listen to the Ivy Unleashed podcast, we want to offer you all of this for only $20 a month, cheaper than any monthly membership you'll find.
Not only that, you'll get a free trial week to test it out.
And if you need more incentive to start prioritizing you, here's our favorite part. Your movement matters. Each month, 10% of your membership will be donated to support the mental health of those in need.
So head on over to goldivyhealthco.com/move or find the link within the show notes of this episode and sign up today. Stop putting yourself in the back burner. Snag your spot and reap the benefits that you deserve to feel this year.
It's your time. Move for your health, move for your confidence, move for your mental clarity, move with Gold Ivy. And now to this episode of the Ivy Unleashed podcast. Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Today we are so excited you are tuning in because we are here with our good friend and coach, Cara Hatch, but this time we are reversing roles.
Yes, and I was nervous about this because Cara has really helped me with my life, helped Brooke with her life too, with all kinds of, I don't want to say advice because you really just ask really empowered questions, and I've learned a lot from you. And then Cara asked me to be her coach, And we have some big news to share. Cara, what did you just do?
I just ran a 10K.
Yeah, you did.
And for all of the runners out there or non-runners, like that was a big deal for me. Andrea runs marathons. She coaches people to run marathons. This felt like my own personal marathon. And I realized that it doesn't matter like what the actual number is. If it's new for you, it's new and it requires the next level of you. So I had to like overcome, well, it's so much, but then also it's not that much. And all just negotiating navigating those different thoughts that I was having.
I think it's super important to dive into all those things, especially what you just said about it being new to you. And so can you give our listeners a little bit of, they know you from being on other episodes. You were in episode 4, which is like one of our most popular episodes, and 43. But for those that haven't heard from you before, can you tell them a little bit about yourself and your history with exercise and what kind of got you to start coaching with me?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm a health coach. I've also moved into a management role within a healthcare company. And so health and well-being has been part of my life for a really long time. In addition to that, exercise at times was really sporadic. And a few years ago, I got really consistent with strength training, and that felt good. Strength training let me know that if I could lift heavy things in the gym, I could also handle heavy things in life. And I loved walking. Walking was so relaxing, walking with a podcast, enjoying nature. That was my jam. And then I fell in love with a runner. And then I was like, uh-oh, if I want to have more quality time with this person, I might need to learn to run too. The challenge is for decades, I had the story of I'm not a runner. I hate to run. It's just not a thing for me. And, I'm working and I'm a mom. I have a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old. And then just the thought of trying to add that in, it took me years to get consistent with strength training. I finally got that solid. And now I'm like thinking about this, adding the new thing. I couldn't figure out how to make it work. So then I would start running with my guy. And every time we would get ready to run, I had this feeling of, oh no, I don't know if I can do it. This is going to be too hard. How will I ever come up? And I became even more aware that the thoughts that I was having were creating even more problems and resistance in the actual running. And so I know as a coach that the mindset is super important. So then I had this wild idea of, well, what if I got a coach who could help me run or learn how to run and learn how to like it, but even more important, help me shift my mindset around it. So that happened in January, and I decided to reach out to Andrea of like, I know you coach people who train for marathons, but what would it be like to coach someone who wasn't ready to do a marathon, but did want to do something that was challenging, who didn't think of themselves as a runner? Like, what would that be like? Like, could I change my own mind with help? And that's how we connected. And you said yes. And then I thought, oh no, I've got to do this now.
I love it. Well, and for those that aren't familiar where we live in Minnesota, and Cara really likes to run outside. There was some treadmill action and things like that, but to sign up for a spring race is really tricky here. And she did a 5K in March too. And it's tough to run a race in spring, and you never know what weather you're going to get on race day here. It's just like, it's snowing 1 second, it's 80 1 second. You were very dedicated to making this happen for a lot of reasons that we're going to get into. I really want people to hear that what training's all about. It was spread out over 4 months, and a lot happened in those 4 months for you.
Yes. And I think what was super helpful is we had that initial coaching call where you were asking me about my life and what I wanted and what was going to be realistic. Because oftentimes I would go online and look at a training plan, or I would read a book and get really inspired, and there would be like a model plan. I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. And then by day 2, I would fizzle. And it's because like a structured program that doesn't take into account somebody's life and their circumstances and their other priorities, oftentimes it's not realistic. And so we had that conversation. And then when the plan was created, it was based on what was doable for me. And that was the key, because I had something that was in alignment with my week and my days.
Yes. And not only your week and your days, but also your preferences and what you enjoy, right? Like we weaved in your walking. We weaved in how much you really wanted to keep your strength training routine going and how you wanted a day that was just like flexible. Like I could rest.
That was key. Yeah. And we got to name that day my like rest day. We named it Freedom and Fun because I wanted to be able to do whatever I wanted on that day and whatever I felt like. So it was my way of kind of getting to do what I want, like that little rebel piece within the structure. And that was really helpful, especially on that coaching call where you actually spend time asking me, hey, what do we call this? What is this for you? And then that was really something to look forward to on Sundays.
Good.
It's so personal.
Yeah.
Right? Like everyone, when we went this past Saturday and watched Cara run the race, there were so many people there. And even what fascinated me when I was doing my marathon was that everyone has a story. Right? Everyone wants something different out of this. And it's so cool to think like, what is it for each person? And so for you, Cara, it was more quality time, tying it to something so valuable, having that why, right? And then wanting to break through that ceiling of I can be a runner. So I'm curious, throughout these 4 months, how did you notice your mindset start to shift? What was that like?
When I think about the trajectory of it, going from like, I can't run, I hate running, like I'm not a runner, to this little spark of like, well, maybe I could. Like, what if I'm wrong about myself? And then I started talking about it and I'm surrounded by people and they're like, well, yeah, you could do that. Or if I went out for a run, they're like, well, you ran. That means you're a runner. And then I realized that there were people around me who believed in me, but I didn't. So it was an opportunity for me to choose, oh, maybe I could borrow their belief for a little bit and then hold that mindset of like, oh, like, what if I'm wrong? Maybe I could learn this. And maybe I could find ways to get out of my own way. And that was really helpful to come to that awareness of like, you're the one that's making this harder.
Oh, that's so powerful.
It's really good, but it's also such a bummer when you realize like you're the problem. I'm like, okay, Taylor, like I get it. It's me. Like I'm the problem. And so then you're presented with that choice of, okay, do I want to keep complaining, or do I want to skip it, or do I want to avoid it? Because sometimes we do want to choose no. Like, nope, just something I feel like complaining about, not interested in changing. Completely legitimate. But then there's other times where we could say, well, maybe I actually could do some work and make the change. And that's what it was for me, whether it was changing my mind about the running itself or about the weather, or whether it was on the treadmill or outside. There were all these micro moments where I had an opportunity to practice a new thought when I really just wanted to stomp my feet and say no.
Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Every episode of Ivy Unleashed is dedicated to empowering you to take ownership of your health. And what it really comes down to is prioritizing your mental health.
We've both seen the beauty and growth that therapy can bring and are thrilled to partner with BetterHelp to allow you the opportunity to feel heard and seen by a professional. The National Alliance on Mental Health reports that 155 million people live in a designated mental health professional shortage area, and BetterHelp is working to close that gap.
I've personally used BetterHelp and loved it because it was all online, making it super convenient. The biggest piece for me was how affordable it is. I was able to choose the therapist that met my needs. I came in with wanting to work on childhood trauma and anxiety, and it was unbelievable to see how many options I had with all the different backgrounds of therapists.
With BetterHelp, you have access to a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness. And sometimes we can't see our own patterns and behaviors until we talk them out and get an unbiased perspective.
It's really nice to have someone who doesn't know you and has the professional background to help you thrive in your daily life. It has made the world of a difference with every relationship in my life, including the one with myself.
To get started, all you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire about your needs and preferences and choose your therapist out of the options they give you. You can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. Also, you can switch therapists at no additional charge until you find the right fit for you.
The best investment you can make is in yourself. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/goldivy. That's betterhelp.com/goldivy.
Take the first step to inner peace and freedom today. Vulnerable story alert. This message is for any person struggling with the embarrassment of excessive underarm sweating and or underarm odor. I've never shared this before, so bear with me. I am a big sweater. I swear I sweat when I think. I used to carry deodorant in my purses, car, backpacks. I did not go anywhere without deodorant, and I applied it dozens of times a day. I haven't been able to wear colorful t-shirts, long sleeve shirts, or sweatshirts since I was 16 due to excessive underarm sweating. And recently, one of my armpits started to smell like onions anytime it sweat. See, I told you this is a vulnerable message, but I wanted to let you know about a treatment I found that has changed my life. This treatment is called Miradry and is for your underarms that greatly reduces sweating and odor. I have had one treatment so far, and I am a new woman. I can officially wear colored shirts without pit stains for the first time in decades, and my armpits no longer smell. I also no longer wear deodorant. I simply don't need it. Miradry uses thermal energy that targets and eliminates the sweat glands in your underarm. Let me repeat that. You just need 1 to 2 treatments. It is the only FDA-cleared treatment that can dramatically reduce underarm sweat by addressing the root cause of excessive sweat and its accompanying odor, not the symptoms. So if you're like me and have had to worry about pit stains from your sweat, excessive sweating even when resting, or planning your day around sweating, Miradry is your solution. Not only has Miradry erased my sweat problem, but also my armpit hair. I used to have to shave every single day. I am walking proof that Miradry works. Once the glands are eliminated, they will not grow back. I absolutely love my Miradry experience, and it was made affordable with a no-interest payment plan. You can find a clinic that provides Miradry all over the U.S., so head to miradry.com to see where the closest location is for you, and don't wait another minute feeling embarrassed about your body. And they have these wonderful patient concierges who will answer all your underarm questions about the treatment. Thank you for letting me share this vulnerable information with you. I am walking proof that Miradry is a life-changing treatment. Nobody should be embarrassed about their bodies, period. And if you want more information, Miradry services will be linked in the show notes, and you can also message me directly to chat more about it. Now back to the show. I think there's also a misconception when you see this beautiful day, this beautiful race, all these runners crossing the finish line. Wow, easy for you, went nice and smooth. But that is not the case. Training is not a super smooth process, and you build a lot of character in the midst of it. And so I would love for you to talk about how this was not perfect. There were some roadblocks. There was a bumpy ride here or there. Could you just talk about, like, you know, in 4 months, what can happen and kind of how you got through those road bumps?
We'll start with the weather. It's Minnesota. It's January. There's snow. There's cold. There's ice. A few years ago, I got a concussion from falling on the ice. So I have no interest in risking safety. So I didn't want to run on the ice. So that was a decision. Got a membership to a gym that had treadmills, that there were going to be times that I would run on the treadmill. I'm mindful of my feet. So I didn't want to put on the little spiky things on my shoes. So that I didn't want to do that. So it was an opportunity for me to think about, okay, what are the conditions that I'm willing to go outside and what am I not going to do? And kind of being okay with that, getting the proper gear, because apparently there's no such thing as bad weather. There's only bad gear that all these athletes are talking about. So I got some fantastic Athleta fleece leggings that saved the day, and I got outside more often. So that was the first thing, was overcoming weather challenges and the mindset around that. And once you're dressed properly, like you warm up, it's fine. And then I had a threshold of like under 17 degrees, I was inside. 17 and above was outside. Then at about week 7, I was lifting and deadlifts and I had a disagreement and I tweaked my back. And that took 7 weeks to feel better. Now, as a health coach and a background in exercise science, like we don't work through like actual like pain. Like when you're on the brink of injury, that's like a stop. This was discomfort. I could still walk. I could still run. My trainer modified my lifting program. There wasn't any actual pain with running. It was sitting. Sitting was the problem. So for 7 weeks, I kept training with my back being wonky. Normally, I would have quit. However, there are a lot of physical therapists that I've been listening to, and they talk about movement being medicine. And that was true. I listened to my body. I kept moving. And after 7 weeks, suddenly I could sneeze without it hurting. And I could sit without it hurting. So that did resolve. And I think my commitment to keep moving was helpful. Got 2 kids, school and sports. That means 5 and 6 a.m. workouts so that you get it done before kids need you or job needs you. So for me, that means a really strict 9 to 10 o'clock bedtime and prioritizing that and communicating that. So navigating that, we had a bout of the stomach flu go through my house the week before a race. I had a family member with a health challenge that we were navigating the week of the race. I had a fever, I think 2 weeks before the race. I mean, stuff comes up. And I think what's really helpful is that the brain gremlin is going to want to freak out, but then we can just like zoom in, like, okay, wait, no, like what's today? What's on the training plan today? And then what do I do tonight to set myself up for success tomorrow? So for example, I got a fever. It was Friday night and I decided my excuses ahead of time. So like ice running outside was an acceptable excuse. Lightning, acceptable excuse. Fever, acceptable excuse. I don't feel like it, not acceptable excuse. So that Friday night, I was like, okay, we have a fever. That means we're not doing long run on Saturday, but if there is no fever, we will do long run on Sunday. So I just I shifted it like within putting constraint on purpose of how do I get it done? And then every time I did a workout or I did a run, I highlighted it on the training plan so I could see each little increment adding up, because it's really overwhelming when you get 17 weeks of things to do.
I love that. Bringing it to what is today, right? Blinders on. What do I need to do? And knowing how good it's going to feel when you do cross that off.
It feels so good. And then you know what really is a kicker? If you accidentally highlight the next day that you haven't done yet, and then you absolutely have no excuses. That happened on a 5-mile day that I hadn't done yet. I'm like, well, now I like really have to do that 5-mile. Like I already highlighted it. Like you do it. I did it. But then that day I forgot to start my watch. And so then I realized that at about the 1-mile mark, I knew where 5 miles was on my route. Then I was like, crap. So I started my watch and I'm running. As I'm getting closer to the end of my run, I knew my watch wasn't going to say 5 miles. And I had never run 5 miles before. So I was like, well, now I got to keep running to get the watch to say 5 miles. And I kept going and I accidentally ran the 6.2. So I accidentally ran the 10K on the day that was a 5-mile run because ego.
Because of how strong your mind is.
Determined. I was like, I wanted to say the 5 miles. So I did that.
I love that so much. And I want to talk about those days where even within training that you ran farther than you would ever ran, right? You would see that number and be like, I've never ran 4 miles. What does that feel like? Even though it's not the end number, but running the farthest that you've ran in the midst of your training.
You helped me a lot with this because it was a topic that came up on our coaching call because I wasn't sure. I was like, what do you do when those gremlin thoughts come in? It's like, I've never gone that far. It's too hard. I don't know what's going to happen. And you helped me come up with this idea of what am I going to learn today? Like, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder how I'm going to do that. And looking at it as a learning opportunity took the pressure off. It took the failure out of it. Because I was like, if I'm learning, then it's just, I'm going to go out there 1 foot in front of the other and see what happens. And then you do it and it's like, oh, okay, if I reverse engineer it, I decided I was going to run. I picked the playlist or the podcast I was going to do. I dressed for the weather. I picked the route. And then I made the decision of just like 1 foot in front of the other, just keep going. And then you do it. And it's like, oh, and that helped me realize sometimes you don't know how you're going to do something until the after. And then once you have that information, that becomes a repeatable plan for next time.
That's so beautiful. That's like what I live for right there. Like it makes me emotional because it can apply to any part of your life. It can show you what you're capable in so many avenues of your well-being, right? Whether it's with your mental health, physical health, relationships, you name it. Like you don't always know what's going to come out of this, but if you trust yourself and you show up, you might not even run the full 4 miles, but like getting out there is the hardest part.
And I'm glad you said the trusting yourself because sometimes you don't know what you're capable of. And if you haven't pushed it, realistically, like you don't have that trust established yet. And like, that's okay. Like we can trust in our ability to try, but we just don't know what's going to happen. And so I had to become even more comfortable or trust my ability to handle whatever came up. For example, there were times when I didn't know if I was going to cry. So I'm like, okay, this might be the run where we cry. I've cried before. I trust my ability to cry. I happen to be a runner who doesn't know what her stomach is going to do. And so there were times where I just had to trust myself of like, we will figure this out. We will find a porta potty. We will find a gas station. We will deal with this. So just like having to build that trust of like whatever comes up, or like if I have to run or walk, okay, I'm going to listen to my body in that moment and walk for a little bit and then trust my ability to pick up and run again.
Okay, I'm curious, Cara. Did you complete everything on this training plan? Like, was everything highlighted by the end?
No, there were markings on everything. So there was like tiers of it. So pink highlights were completed like as prescribed. If it said 3, I ran 3. There were times where for whatever reason, like I didn't, or maybe it was a walk run or something was modified. So that was a blue highlight. So that I could see that it was a blue highlight. And then spring break, we went on vacation and we went to Tucson. And ahead of time, I looked at Google Maps. The neighborhood, the house looked like it was going to be very runnable. However, when we got there were no like shoulders or sidewalks, and the neighborhood was up and down, really big. And we did see a wild javelina run by the fence, by the pool, by the house. And I was like, okay, there's no shoulder, there's really big hills, and there are wild animals. I'm not running. So there were 4 days where there wasn't any running. So that was like a little pink box around it. So then what I would do is like before coaching calls, I would count up the difference between completed days, modified days, or not a day. And then I would come up with a percentage and then let Andrea know kind of like where I was in compliance. And I like to think that I'm not a type A person, but as I'm describing this is sounding very type A. It's more that I like points and I like getting A's on things. However, there are times in life that B minus work is fantastic. Like sometimes we give a B minus effort on purpose. So then I could kind of see where I was, because like perfect compliance was just not realistic for my life. I wanted to make sure that I was in the zone where I felt like I was truly giving my best effort, and recognizing that like effort isn't perfect.
Right. Yeah, I think that's important for people to understand, is like you get this training plan and it can look overwhelming. It's a lot of miles that you're like, I'm going to do all of this, what? Or they just look at it online. They're like, hell no, I don't want to do that. I can't do that or whatever. But yeah, I think it's important. And I try and express that. I don't know if people hear me all the time when I say like, this is a guideline. We came up with what you would like to do, what you see yourself doing, what feels realistic, how we can make this not burn you out, right? But also it's not expected that you hit all these things, right? The biggest idea is that you can pick up and go for a run because you've put in enough miles that like getting up and going outside to run a mile or two doesn't feel overwhelming to you.
Yes, that was really helpful because I learned like what my mind and my body was capable of. And then that ability to think of, okay, like I can modify if needed. It doesn't mean I quit. It just means we make a shift so that this is sustainable long term.
Yeah. So you get closer and closer to the race. You've got different color highlights. It's about like a week or two out and the race is coming. How are you starting to feel like emotionally?
I'm starting to feel like I want to be mindful of every single bump in the road where I'm walking. I'm really mindful of, I want to protect my ankles. We had a coaching call and you're giving tips for keeping the immune system feeling good. So I'm like trying to do everything I can to avoid the germs. The universe is really funny, invites all of them into my house. And then I try to blame Andrea for jinxing me, but it is not Andrea's fault. And just getting excited. And it was interesting because like 2-3 weeks out, I wasn't sure how I was getting there. And we had a coaching call and Andrea was like, well, how are you getting there? What's the timing? And I was like, well, I don't really know yet. And I didn't know how I was getting there. I didn't know if my kids were going to go with me. It's in Minneapolis, St. Paul. So the parking, I didn't know the parking situation. There were emails around bus lines. And I'm like, okay, I'm very suburban. I haven't done the bus thing. Like I didn't have those details figured out. And it was another example of the universe. When you set an intention out there, the universe will conspire to support you. My guy had some friends who were also running the race. He was able to coordinate a ride for me. And she knew the parking area. She was able to park. We got there in plenty of time. It was super relaxed to get there. We ran into some other baseball mom friends that my guy knows. And so I felt very supported on that day. So leading up to it, there were all of these unknowns. And I just kept taking it, okay, like day by day. What I have to do to take care of myself today, to get ready for it. And then it just, the pieces came together because I was mindful each day. But the nerves were definitely there. I'm not going to pretend that I was super confident of like, I got this. I just had to remind myself, I've trained for this. So no matter what happened on race day, and Andrea really coached me on this during our call, like, yeah, you have these goals, but the top goal is one foot in front of the other because you don't know what's going to happen on that day. And I was super resistant. It's like, I don't want to think about whatever happens. Like, I want this all to be perfect. And she's like, no. One foot in front of the other. And that was super, super helpful going into that day because I knew no matter what happened on that day, you can't take away my 17 weeks of training. I showed up for myself all of those weeks. So like that one day, it's a celebration, but if it hadn't have gone that way, it still would have been fine. I would have been disappointed, but I still would have also known I did all of that ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And race day is tricky because the factor that plays in that is kind of the wild card is the nerves, because it can affect your digestive system and you can get shaky and off kilter with your balance. And I've tripped over things like I've never tripped once in training and I fell flat on my face in Chicago. Like you don't know what's going to happen when those nerves and the adrenaline kicks in. And so that's why I tell people that, because you just don't know. And so, and Cara sent Brooke and I a picture of herself and she's like, oh no, I look back at the picture. I just noticed how nervous I am by the way I'm smiling.
When I always think of like Catherine, our fellow coach, she always coaches that like anxiety or that nervousness is excitement on pause. I just had to remind myself, oh, this is excitement on pause. Like when it's ready, I'm going to push the play button and then that energy is going to fuel.
Yeah. So let's talk about the race. Tell us all about your experience and what it felt like to be in the midst of all these women running.
There were it felt like so many people. I did a 5K as a practice, but that was like 100 people in small town Minnesota, which was like a really good experience. I'm glad I did like a practice, but this is now like thousands of people running. It was actually really interesting seeing such a variety of ages and abilities and body types and strides and getting out there and going into it. I really wanted to be able to figure out, okay, how do I go at my own pace and find that rhythm? It was really helpful. At one point, a runner who was easily in her mid 70s ran past me with this like comfortable, strong stride. And at first I wanted to be like, oh, really? And then I looked at her, I was like, oh my gosh, you are so motivating. And I'm 43 now, I'll be 44 in July. And then I was thinking about it, I was like, I've got 30 years, whether it's walking or strength training or anything, I've got 30 years to take care of myself so that I could do something like this when I was in my 70s. So that was actually really inspiring, because as I was running at first, you're like, there's so much visual stimulation and your attention is going all these different places. And I had to like recalibrate, like, wait, that's not where we want our energy right now. It's like, bring it in, focus, like pay attention to my feet, the little bit of road in front of me, listen to my music. So being able to like zoom in, that was helpful to refocus the energy. And then I realized I didn't understand the flags of like the miles, because there was 2 different colors. I didn't know which one I was. And then there'd be a number, like a 1 or a 2 or 3. I'm like, am I starting one? Am I finishing one? I'm like, I don't know how this race thing works. We're just going to keep running until we stop. Luckily, at one point, like after the first mile, I look over and then I caught like Andrea in the side of my eye. And I was like, oh my gosh, Andrea, Brooke. And then you guys were there and surprised me. And that, the nerves of like, can I do this? Like just stopped. I was like, oh, like I got this. It's on. And then I was able to keep going. It was a huge energy boost seeing the 2 of you there.
Awesome. That's what we were hoping for.
We had way too much
Brooke's
fun.
Choked up over here.
It's so cool to think, going back 4 months ago, you hated running, right? You didn't have the confidence in yourself, the trust, all of these things. And it's one day, yes, but what people don't see is all of that work. And it is so beautiful, right? That you say, I want this and I'm going to go freaking get it. And I'm going to hire someone who's done it to help me. And that ownership piece of, I can do anything I set my mind to with the right people, and seeing all of those women run it, like motivating each other, like we are so much better together. And I'm just having this moment of like how beautiful life is. And it's through the hard things that bring us together.
And that was so important for me, because so often you can have this idea of like, I can't do something, or I don't know how to do something. And people around you will be like, well, yeah, of course you can do it. Like, yeah, you can just go do it. But if you don't believe that for yourself, that's a big deal. And sometimes we have to believe in ourselves enough to invest in help, to know I can do a lot of things, and there's a blocker right now. I'm aware of this blocker, and it's going to require somebody else's brain to help me get through it. And that was like the push for me to invest in coaching, to be like, well, yeah, I'm already a coach. I have this background, but that doesn't mean that I can do everything or I can believe everything that I want to believe about myself. And it's really important to have that awareness that sometimes we just need, and maybe not even need, sometimes we not just want it. We just might want extra support, especially if you're in a role where you're taking care of other people during the day, or if you're also working, when your energy is going to other people all day long, it feels really good to know that there's somebody like a professional, like, I got you. I'm going to help you get to this goal. Like, you're not in it alone. And it's a different level than your friends and family saying, I got you.
That makes total sense. I feel the same way when I talk with you, when you coach me about anything in life. I think that's so key, especially for like moms or like, we all coach people all day long, and we give and we give and we give, and we're always helping other people. I know a lot of people can relate to this in healthcare and whatnot, that having a coach that can ask you, how did you take care of yourself today? Or what is it that you're kind of wanting to implement into your life that feels kind of far-fetched or hard? Like I can care for you. I can give to you and make you feel like you're holding someone's hand to get you there, because it is possible. It doesn't feel like it when you're giving so much to everybody else, though. And so I feel the same way when I'm on the phone with you. Like, I feel like so supported and cared for. And it's nice when you're caring for people all day long.
Yeah. And just to tell the truth about your experience and to have that safe space. That's what's really special about a coaching dynamic, because you can tell the truth about your experience without having to put it through a filter of how is this other person going to interpret it? Or do I have to be protective of their feelings? It's a different type of conversation than when you're connecting with friends and family. So that was really helpful for me to have that container.
I'm curious how you feel your experience would have been different if you didn't invest in a coach.
Oh, I wouldn't have done it. That's easy.
Okay, fair.
No, like I wouldn't have done it. And the reason why I can say that so quickly and with confidence is I was listening to a book, Born to Run 2, which is a fantastic book. And they were talking about this idea of people running and loving it and not getting injured. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I could do that. And so listened to the audiobook, got the book, looked at the training plan, started with like day 1 or day 2. I downloaded the app. And then there was this idea you're supposed to like run in place listening to the B-52's Rock Lobster, that song. It's a 6-minute song. I did the whole song because I forgot that you're supposed to like start off in increments. Couldn't walk for like a week because my calves were so tight. It's a really good exercise, but like don't start with 6 minutes when you're a beginner. And then I'm looking at this training plan. I'm using the app. It's sending me like emails of things to do. And I'm like, well, I can't do that today. I have this, this, and this. And then I was making up a story of like, well, obviously I can't follow a training plan. But there was also a part of me that kind of wanted to do something. And I'm like, okay, well, if this isn't working and I'm not doing it on my own, like, what if it's not my fault? What if that just wasn't the right kind of support to get me to the goal that I wanted? So I broke up with Rock Lobster, and then I sent Andrea a text. And the real story of this, I was washing my hair, and then I had this idea, like I'm in the shower, and I had this idea of like, I bet like Andrea and Brooke could help me because like they could take a non-runner to a runner. And so then I get out of the shower, I send a text to Andrea, and then she responds like, okay, let me talk to Brooke about it. Why don't you start looking at some races? I'm still in a towel. And then by the time she gets back in touch with me and we're going to do this, I've already signed up for the 5K in March in Minnesota, which was not really wise. And then I've also signed up for a 10K in May. And I'm like, I washed my hair, I sent a text, and now I'm deciding that I'm going to be a runner.
That's a big day.
Just shower thoughts with Cara Hatch.
Well, this is how it happens. And then I was actually like talking to Riley, my guy, afterwards. I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe this wild idea that I had in January is like actually happening now, like on race day. Like this thing, this just like wild idea, like it's here now. And that's actually really kind of cool that we could have this like, well, maybe I could. And then build a support team around yourself. And then it happens with like all of this craziness, like up and down in between.
Yeah, but it happened, right? You got to that day, you crossed that damn finish line. It was incredible. I'm sure highlight of your life. You're going to do a million more, but I'm curious what you learned about yourself looking back. What surprised you?
Surprised me that I was able to change my mind about things because I have a history of being a little bit stubborn. I set a couple stretch goals. Like the goal was like the first goal was finish. The second goal was, okay, could I do it in 77 minutes? Because that's about what I did it on the day I accidentally ran the 10K. And then my birthday is July 4th. So I was like, well, what if I did it in 74 minutes? Like that would be kind of cool. Well, I ended up running it in just a little over 69 minutes. So I beat my stretch goal by almost 5 minutes. And I was like, I did not even know that that was possible. I had to check the time multiple times. I'm like, am I reading the clock right? They sent me an email. I'm like, well, is this how math works? Like if there's a 1, is that really an hour? Like what is going on? So I didn't know that my body could do that. And I didn't know that my mind could not quit. So I was on a coaching call with Andrea one day and my leg was being wonky. I'm like, I don't know what's happening at 1.5 miles. It just like doesn't want to pick up. And she had the audacity to suggest that perhaps that was in my mind. I was so indignant. I was like, I feel my leg. It is not picking up. That's not my mind. So then my next training run, I was like, well, like, what if it is in my mind? Like, what if my leg does keep moving? What if it lifts up? Like what happens? And I finished the run and I was like, oh, like even if there is a sensation or some discomfort, like you can keep going. So that was something really powerful that I learned, that a sensation or a discomfort doesn't mean immediately stop. And that's helpful for life.
Yeah, it creates some belief when you feel something, some discomfort that you haven't felt when you're doing a thing you're not normally doing. That belief, oh, I'm hurt. Oh, I'm hurting. And then I feel like it makes it worse and it perpetuates this like thing. And there's also something that I've noticed with other clients that once you hit this threshold of where you haven't really gone that distance, that your brain is saying like, you can't do this. So your body's like, all right, you're right. I can't, I'm going to get a cramp now. Because your mind is telling you, our body doesn't do this, right? And so I believe I just asked you if perhaps your mind could be playing into it and just to notice.
You did. It was very coach-like. I may have had a bit of a emotional overreaction in my mind, but it was actually really helpful. And the reason why it was also so helpful is because like I started a new job in the midst of all of this too. And it's requiring a new level of thinking and emotional capacity. And so it's having those moments of like, oh, this is new. Nothing has gone wrong. This is just an opportunity to push through a little bit more discomfort or ask a question or ask for some more support, and recognizing that as my physical capacity is growing, becoming even more aware of a higher level of physical capacity, I'm also becoming more aware of a higher level of emotional or intellectual capacity within the new role. So they work together, and I wouldn't have been able to recognize that as quickly if I weren't going through this running process at the same time.
That's very cool. Yeah, you went through a lot in this experience with sounds like every avenue of your life.
Yes.
Yeah, but let's talk about crossing that finish line. What does that feel like? What does it feel like to cross that finish line and get that medal that you have been training for months for?
I was really excited and I literally didn't know what to do. I crossed the finish line and then I saw Andrea and I was like, what do I do now? Like, what do I go? Where do I go? You're like, well, you go get water and then you come around.
It's like, go get your medal. Get that medal first.
Got the medal. That was really fun. And then the brain does this weird thing because it's like, oh, I just did this thing. Well, should I have done more? Like, if I finished this, like, could I have gone farther? And I was breathing heavy and I was tired, but I wasn't like doubled over like you'll see on TV. And I'm like, well, could I have tried harder? Could I have run faster? Was there more in me? So that's really interesting to be finished and proud, and yet also having these questions of like, could I have done more? I don't know. Like, I'm not even thinking about doing more, but like there's that thought.
Do you want to know what I think about that?
A little bit.
She's like, I think number one, that's proper training. That is, you were able to cross the finish line and have more because you had already basically done that run on accident. But you built up to that, right? So even if you hadn't accidentally done that, like you had the training, you had the strength, you had the rest days, you were properly hydrated, you were eating proper foods that you knew agree with your digestive system. And so of course you were fine because you had trained for that, right? And you definitely could have done more, but that's another conversation and we can.
But it was the training. Like I felt well prepared. So that was good.
I love all of the what ifs I keep hearing. And I think that's something that everyone listening right now can tap into, right? Of what if I am capable of a lot more than I'm giving myself credit for? What if I don't have to hate running? What if I can enjoy moving my body in a way that connects me with others and people I love? You know, all of those what ifs allow us to come from a place of curiosity. And it's from that place, Cara, that you cross that damn finish line of what am I capable of? What if I can be a runner? And you are a damn runner.
It's fun. It's super fun.
Can you say it?
I'm a runner. I'm a runner.
And it's fun, she just said.
Well, it is fun. And I'll tell you, it also starts with like, find the cute shoes that are within your budget that make you happy. Find the clothes that make you happy. Like when you're running, like, because, and I say that because it is also about creating a new identity. So I would wear my running shoes like almost every day. I would have a couple pairs that I would train or switch between, but every time I put on my shoes, I would say, I'm a runner. The podcast that I was listening to, I am so hooked on people who are running like ultra marathons. Not because I ever want to do one, but the fact that there are people out there, there are moms out there who have the capacity to run 100 miles, 250 miles. It would right size my goal of like, okay, if Sally can do 250, surely today I can do 5. And it's almost drowning out the old thoughts that aren't serving you. And so I would talk to Andrea about different books to read or listen to because I needed to pump more things into my brain to drown out the other thoughts. So that's important to know that when you want to do something, going to that highest level of, okay, if I were to change my identity, if I were to start thinking about myself as I am a this, then the values and the beliefs and the behaviors and the environment underneath it come into play. Like I had to go super high and be willing to redefine myself. And there was so much resistance for that because you kind of feel like a fake and a fraud at first.
Well, to your point, you're developing a new identity.
Yeah. So it's like if I talk to other people, like, you're running, I'm like, well, I can only do like a mile right now. Okay, fine. Like, I'm a mile runner. I love running a mile. I don't love running a mile, but yeah. No, I need to stop that. That's actually like a thought that I shouldn't even say. Like, I can confidently run a mile. I was not able to say that, in the recent past.
Yeah. Well, we're so proud of you. It's so fun to even just like see you beaming and to see you on the race day. It was very cool. And to see that you were surprised by us and just to watch you run up to that finish line. You have done everything you set out to do. It's just so exciting. And I'm so happy you're open to talk about the struggles of it too, and what it feels like to jump into something that feels uncomfortable. So we're so happy that you joined us, and we want to talk even more with you about this. And as you know, we always give our listeners 3 gold stars. So Cara, what would yours be today?
The first one is challenge your nevers. If you notice yourself saying, I could never, or I would never, get curious. Like, is that really true? Could there be something different? 2, be willing to be uncomfortable. And I say that from the perspective of trust in your capacity to feel whatever emotion comes up. A big one for me was embarrassment, because I was afraid that like, if I went out for a run with Riley, if I couldn't make it or I had to stop for a walk, I'd like be embarrassed that I wasn't good enough. So being willing to be uncomfortable with a possible emotion like embarrassment. And 3, create that support team around you in real life and also virtually. So think about who are the friends and family who would cheer me on. Consider hiring a coach or getting books that will be helpful, or curating your social media intentionally with people who embody the values that you want to grow into.
Beautiful. Man, those are good.
So good. Okay, more questions, because we love questions. Unleashing Ivy, our rapid fire questions. Are you ready, Cara Hatch?
Yes, totally unprepared and fully ready.
What emotions or feelings come up for you right now when I tell you I think you're completely capable of running a half in the fall?
Oh my God, I knew. And I even told Riley, like we had a plan. I was like, I am not allowed to sign up for any long races on race day because I was afraid of making decisions with a runner's high. That's interesting. All the resistance of like, I don't think I can do it. I can't navigate mom life at the same time. I don't want to take that much time to train. What happens when it gets really hot? So we can be worried about the weather in the winter. We can also be worried about the weather in the summer. And there's the thought of, but what if I could?
I'm not saying you have to do anything.
No, but I can feel it. I can feel the like, but what if I could? Because that would require like definitely a mindset shift. And it would require me to think about myself in brand new ways and overcoming challenges. So like, that's interesting of who would I have to become and what would be important for me to do consistently for that to happen. That's an interesting question to ponder.
Well, whenever you're ready, I'm here.
Okay.
This isn't my question, but what if one of us ran it with you? Would that change?
What's your pace, Brooke?
Well, right now it's about a 20-minute.
Okay, then I'm running with Brooke. Yeah, no, that actually, oh my gosh. See, then the not peer pressure, camaraderie. Yeah, that would be really interesting.
Because I feel like the only reason I could run a full was because I ran it with Andrea.
But to be clear, we don't run
together.
No, I know you don't. Right. It's like showing up together. Yeah. Cause like, I don't want to run with something. I'm the kind of person where if I'm going through like a hard time, like if I need to focus, like childbirth or when I got a tattoo, like don't talk to me. Don't try to distract me. I need to be like in the zone, because like happy Cara is going to turn into crabby Cara real quick. And then I don't want to be that person to somebody that I care about. It's like, I know you're trying to encourage me, but like, shh.
Yes. There's a, you are in your own zone, but you also have texts coming through on your watch of like, I'm a magnet. I am pulling you. She's telling the group text mile 7 and I'm at mile 4 and I'm like, okay, I'm coming. There's a different motivation piece. I am not saying I will run this with you. I'm not committing right now. It's just a thought.
Just a what if.
Just a what if.
It's just a thought. Yeah. And I did get motivational text while I was running from my daughter and from Riley and Andrea. And like, that was fun. But I'm like, nobody asked me how I'm doing. I'm like mile 2 or mile 3. Do not ask me, how are you? Because I will just glare at you.
Okay. My question, you run this race and now it's done. What do you do with all of this time that was put towards training? Are you wanting to do a different challenge? Are you taking time for you? What is life like now?
I have a couple ideas. One, that last night going to bed, I felt like this sense of relief because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't have a specific run I have to do. But then what I was thinking about is like, oh, now this is the window. Like if I think of the summer, this is the window where I become even more aware of running for me. Like I'm not running for a race. It's like, oh, this is my opportunity to become consistent with running simply because I like the way that I feel after the running. So then I started thinking about like, what is the sweet spot of running distances that I like? And I like it 3 to 4 days. And I like 2 miles, 3 miles, and 4 miles. I'm like, oh, if in a week I were to practice that, that's interesting. One of my friends who leads by example with physical activity and all of these like amazing endurance challenges. Her name is Sarah. She gave me a book called The 12-Hour Walk. So I'm toying with the idea of doing a 12-hour walk where you are just out there walking, no phone, no podcast, no music, just you and you. Because I can't think of the last time that I was just by myself with no other input for more than an hour, maybe more than 4 hours for sure.
Alan Stein Jr., who was on the podcast, he did it with his partner, but he had incredible things to say about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm like, the 12-hour walk is one. And then just like, what is it like to just run for me? And am I capable of keeping that going?
I feel like we should do it as a business meeting.
Does that defeat the purpose though? Like I'm trying to do it to chill out, not to like hustle harder.
Yeah, you have to be by yourself, like nobody else. Like you walk out your front door and you're just out for 12 hours.
How do you know what time it is?
I think you can probably have a watch with you.
You can take your phone with you but keep it on airplane mode. Yeah. And then there's like a little app that in the community. And
all right, Cara, and the last question. If you could go back to Cara 4 months ago, what would you tell her?
Downplaying your desire to do this. I'm not sure if that fully captures it, but before a run, I would say things like, oh, I don't know if I could do it, or I don't want to do it, or I'm nervous, or there would be a lot of negative self-talk. But what I realized in hindsight is that was my fear of failure. And it was a way of kind of like setting it up. Like if I don't make it, like I didn't really want it in the first place. So it's like failing ahead of time because you're afraid of failing. So just if you can let go of that, or maybe embrace the fact that you're scared, like fully, I just really owning, you know what, I want to do this thing and I don't know if I can do the thing. And I'm really scared of being vulnerable. If I'm running with somebody else, like I'm really scared of being vulnerable in front of my guy, or I'm really scared of telling my friends I want to do this thing and I don't do it. Or if I'm setting a goal and I don't make it, what kind of role model am I for my kids? So just like really being honest, like, hey, this thing scares me because I don't actually know if I can do it.
That's beautiful. And I keep thinking about your kids too, that they got to watch you, do this imperfectly, right? And that's the way you're supposed to do it anyways. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think that's what stops a lot of people. And you showed yourself and your partner and your kids and your friends that, wow, she really did not think she was a runner and she really did the damn thing. So I love it. And I love how much you've reflected through this process, right? And through coaching with you, you were really thinking about what kind of music does help me. Actually, that hip hop remix makes me angry when I like Jesus music, or like podcast. Sometimes you find things out about yourself, and reflecting about you learn more about who you are and what can drive you. And so I love that you gave yourself the opportunity to learn more about yourself.
Yeah. And that's, I think, the most meaningful part is that it needed to have meaning, like a purpose for doing it and a way to get to know myself better. I would have an ongoing kind of journal in my notes where I would write down how the run went that day, what the weather was, what I was wearing, what thoughts I would have. And then it was helpful later on, if something else seemed familiar, it's wait, I think this already happened before. How did I get through it? And I could scroll through, or what did I do? So it was a way, it's interesting where it's past self is coaching present self to create future self. But future self, picturing future self was the key to making it all happen.
Wow, we don't do small talk around here. I love it. Oh, I love this conversation so much. I'm so proud of you. And Andrea, I want to know how you feel. How does this make you feel? Seeing Cara, understanding what she's been through, being there firsthand, and now you've got a runner on your hands.
It feels great because, this is my mission in life, is to help women believe they can, whatever it be or do. It's super empowering because I've seen it happen so many times where it's all you need is one little person to be I know you can do this. I know you can. And everything in you is saying, you don't know me very well though, But this is it feels so aligned to have a client like you. And that I'm just so happy that you're sharing your experience, because people need to understand, yes, I'm a marathoner, and it can be intimidating to think about having me as a coach, of what that would mean and how strict it would need to be. And it's not. I meet you right where you're at, and I want to talk to you about what you want and why you want it and what you want your week to look like and where your kid's going to be in this and what time of day is that and what do you like to eat? And, we talk about it all because it's really about you. I love being along for the ride though, but it's been awesome. I'm so happy that you trusted me.
Yeah, it was the most meaningful experience and a very, very valuable investment.
Not me crying over here. Okay, let's wrap it up before I keep tearing up. Oh, I love you both. Yeah. I'm so proud of you both. I'm so happy I didn't have to run this race. And that I'm passing the torch to the next one.
I can't wait till she coaches you about what you just said about this underlying negativity about it. What does that mean? Oh. Cara will get to the root of it.
Brooke expended more energy jumping and cheering for everybody running than many of the runners out there. It was fantastic.
These runners are like, who the heck is this girl? I'm just out here living my best life, screaming bloody murder.
It was so fun and such a beautiful day. So thanks for letting us be a part of it. And as you know, Cara, we always leave our listeners with a piece of gold. We hate to see you go. We could talk about this all day long and love to just be with you. But if you could send off our listeners with your piece of gold today, what would it be?
That thing in your life that you want to do, but you are scared to do because it's going to require new boundaries, new beliefs, and new behaviors. Do it. It is so worth it. And do it the way that Andrea coaches, one foot in front of the other.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.